Right. So what is self-service reporting? Now, this is a new term, hype in the market. People have been, it's kind of like a trigger term. The way that I define it, and there's a whole lot of definitions out there, the way that I like to define it is an approach to reporting that enables business users to access and work with corporate data without requiring the involvement of IT, right? The key driving factors or terms there are business users are the ones who are doing the self-service and IT is not involved. Those are the two things that we're going to see today, and we're going to focus on those two key points as we go on in the session. Let's start with a couple of polls here. Let's start off a poll, and we will ask us, why do we need self-service reporting? I mean, that's something that everybody has been talking about, but why do we need it? What's the whole rationale behind self-service reporting? And we'll see a survey from a research company as well in a while, but go ahead and enter your thoughts. Why do you think people need self-service reporting? Is it end user dissatisfaction? Is it inadequate IT resources? Is it you want to be more data-driven? And if it's something else, go ahead and put your thoughts on the question panel, and I'll see if there's anything in there. Okay, so I'm just going to wait for at least half of us to have voted, and I think we have. So I'm going to close the poll here just so that we can move on. There's a lot of polls. We'll have other chances of voicing our opinions. So we see that a lot of us constantly changing business needs. That's the key one. That's the biggest one. And some of us are also kind of in the same boat where end users don't agree with what we give them and they want to do it their way. Sorry, end users, if there's anybody out there. But we know business users have their own way. Let's move on, and we'll look at the survey, which was conducted by TDWI Research, and they focused on self-service business intelligence. And as we know, we all agree with that survey. Constantly changing business needs is the top. And we all in the audience also have said the same thing. Maybe I should hide my poll so that you can actually see the slide that I'm looking at, you know? That would help. That would be helpful. Anyway, so yes, like I was saying, constantly changing business needs has been the top of the requirements and driving factors for self-service BI, and this has been there for the last 4 years. I mean, since self-service BI became the term to go after. Now we're going to do a bit more on the theory side. Let's look at a few other polls here and kind of try and make this interactive. Let's see how, I mean, we know that self-service reporting is required. How do you provide self-service reporting, if you do at all? So let's go ahead and start off that poll. So if you'd like to kind of vote, what do you do for self-service reporting? Do you do third-party ad hoc reporting tools? Do you custom build? Or like a lot of our people or audience has it right now, we don't have self-service reporting. That's why we're in this presentation, right? Okay, so a lot of it, the way that it's trending, and I'll show you these results in a sec here. The way that it's trending, a lot of us don't have self-service reporting, or we have a custom-built solution. Let me just go ahead and show you these poll results. So it's a good thing. So if we don't have self-service reporting, this is a good time to start. People are asking for it. We all know why we need it. Let's look at another poll here. Kind of, that was the how, but how important is it? Is it something that users are asking you today? Let's start with that as well. What's the importance of this to you? Is it self-service reporting something that your users are constantly asking, or is it something that, nah, not really, or just a few users? Right, so I think it's a good split here. No, the votes just moved up on the most important, right? Okay, so we'll close the poll here in a sec. It is pretty even with not really, and yes, it's very, very important. As we'll see, I mean, it's 33% on each. That's okay. I mean, that's good. It's always good to be ahead of the business users, right? Let's start with one last one, and this, I promise it's going to be the very last one. What do you want in a self-service reporting solution? What are the key things that you look for? Right, and this is the last part, the last poll, and before we get into the meat of our discussion. Oh wow, people want everything. They want all of this. They want easy to learn, easy to use, faster time to value, better ROI, and customizability. Cool, that's nice. Okay, so we're going to just close the poll here. I'll share these results. The majority of people look for ease of use and intuitiveness, which is obvious, kind of, because it's business users. You don't want to be sitting there with a reference manual and showing business users how to use the solution. So that's where ActiveReports Server comes in. So what is ActiveReports Server? ActiveReports Server is a server-based reporting technology which lets you host, run, and design reports. What does that mean? It has a web-based report designer which you can plug in and make it usable for your end users. We'll see a few screenshots in here, but we'll go through and look at this in a bit more detail with our first demo. The HTML5 portal is responsive and it helps you collaborate. So as a business user, you can work with the data, you can design your reports, and collaborate out. The biggest thing is you don't need to code to implement ActiveReports Server. You can just install it and you're ready to go. Now, if you do want to integrate this as closer to your own product or your own enterprise applications, you can with the extensible security and audit logs and the API. But you don't need to. You can actually get going with just a simple install, putting in intelligence, as we'll see in a while, and you're ready to go. So we'll take this step by step. Let's look at the ad hoc report designer. It is a web-based report designer, and what it offers you is an intuitive drag and drop user experience, and we'll really see exactly what I mean by that. It really touches on all the points that you are looking for in that last poll. It's easy to use, it's intuitive, and the best thing is it's built for business users, keeping business users in mind when we're building that. Right, so let's go ahead and let's get into the meat of things. That is the end of theory. All done with theory now. Let's get into the practical aspect, and I'm sure everyone's waiting for this. So what we're going to do on the first demo is we're going to look at a day in the life of an account manager. Now what that means is essentially we're going to act as an account manager. We're going to log in and we're going to see the reports. We're going to build a report. We're going to add a few things onto the report, and we're going to share it off with our sales manager. How's that? Let's go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and change and get onto my browser here. Now I'm using Chrome as my browser here. You can see Edge is right there. This is a Windows 10 machine. I can see Edge right there, but I'm not using it. I haven't played around with it enough to really do a webinar using Edge yet. So this is what you would see as a business user. As you log in, if you haven't integrated this with your own enterprise software, this is what you will see. You'll see a login screen, you log in, and then you are able to work with the reports that you have permissions for. We're going to log in as admin. And like I said, once you integrate this, you can pass through and you can have all the nice single sign-on stuff. Ricardo, we're going to come to data sources in a sec when we're talking about data models. Remind me if I don't touch upon those, but we will come to that in a sec. Right. So coming back to the report portal, now this is a responsive portal. What that means is if you're on a mobile device, you'll see the portal UI in a way that it works for the mobile user, right? So, but it's basically HTML5, so it works across all browsers and the standard HTML5 features. Now, let's look at the different parts of this report portal. As a business user, as an account manager, I've come in, I can see nothing. Wow. But I can go to my favorites. I can see the reports that I like to see. So annual sales summary, open that up. Let's look at my customer list, open that up. Call center dashboard, open that up. So all of this, I'm just opening these reports up, and what it's doing is it's loading them in the background while I can do my other work, right? Some reports will take longer than others because it's actually going to the database and getting the data. This one, customer list, pretty simple, straightforward, tabular report. It gave it to me faster than the others. Now, whether I want a summary view with interaction, like this one has actually interaction built in, so I can drill down and get into more details of data. It'll load up that other report. Or I have static dashboards, which basically give me a quick view of what's going on. Or I have a big map showing me where my distribution of, in this case, oil-producing countries is. You can basically see all the basic type of reports, all the reports that you need to see in a regular business day. Right? This is my monthly sales, which I drill down and link through. I can drill down and see January data and see more information on January as well. Right, we'll just wait for that, and there is a, okay, Ricardo, you just said thanks. Okay, cool. So we see Canada, and we see all the different sales that happened for that, for January 2011. If I wanted to change the parameters, obviously I could change those parameters here and see different data. We'll go back to our nice report portal here. Okay, there we go. And we have other reports categorized based on where it makes sense, whether it's active tunes I have, or in my ERP system, or a separate trading company which I created, right? Or healthcare, which I don't have any reports for. But essentially, these are all categorized, and each of these reports, what I can do is I can go in and work with them. I can collaborate with other users in my group. Now I'm logged in as the admin, so I can actually see all the groups. Now I can set permissions for other users. So I can say, well, Team Alpha, I'm going to give you read permissions on this report. And they'll be able to see this. They'll be able to run this report. They'll be happy that they can see the customer list, hopefully. If I wanted to schedule this out, I would add a task, and we're going to go do this later, so I'm not going to go and spoil all the fun. But my scheduled tasks are coming over here. History of scheduled tasks which have run in the past, that would come over here. Versioning is essentially giving me what is it that has changed over time. So you'll see that this started on the 25th of November, and I changed something just, hey, today. I fixed the data model, right? And then categorization is over here. So I can see that it's on my favorites and also in the customers. So I can see this customer list in both the places. If I wanted to see it in other places as well, I could go ahead and change that. So essentially, you have all the tools in this view that you would want to do with reporting. Whether you want to view the report, whether you want to work with the report, whether you want to schedule it out, you have everything here. But let's see. Now that report was over here. This is my customer list. And if we remember, we were going to make a customer list with some sales data. And I wanted that to be my own customers, right? That was what my use case was that we were going to build. Let me just get that out on my paper here so I remember what we need to do. Right, so what we're going to do is, well, this doesn't have, well, it has sales, right? But it's not filtered. I could actually go in and, well, I could add a filter to this. Go ahead and edit this and add a filter. But that's not fun. That's not fun. I can go ahead and edit this report and add a filter. That's not fun. I'm going to go ahead and create my own. Right? So I'm going to start off with creating a new report and say, new report. Now what this new report does is gives me a dialog saying, where are you going to pick up the data from? Well, I'm going to pick up the data from ActiveTunes. And this is where the data models come in. Now these data models are not necessarily a direct link to your database. They can be a partial link to your database. They can be a complete link. They can be a transformation of your database in through the data model to really talk the business language. And that's the key driver. You want your data models to be intelligent and to be able to talk to the business user in the language of the business user. And that's what you'll see here. We'll go through and see this data model in a bit more details. But one of the things that you'll see, track here has genre. And this genre is really a lookup table, but it's coming up as an attribute here. That's all what the data model does. There's a lot of other things, but that's one of the things that the data model will do. It'll hide relations, for example, playlist, related to tracks, related to album, related to artist. That's one side. And then tracks related to playlists as well. So all of these things make business sense, but they're not necessarily implemented in that way by the DBAs. DBAs like to normalize stuff, and that's the right way to do things. But business users don't understand it. And that's okay. Business users are not supposed to understand it. Business users are supposed to understand invoices, customers. Now, this UI is my designer. I'm going to go and spend some time here on the UI as well. It has headers. The page further down has a footer as well. This may be a bit hard to see with the screen, but I'll just highlight these so that you can actually see the margins over here. I can go ahead and change, for example, the margin. Let me change the orientation, for example, layout, landscape. Now it's a landscape report. If I change portrait, it's a portrait. So it's basically responding to what the user wants. I can change the margins. I can change the page size. I can hide the footer. I can set the size of the footers. I can change the theme of the reports and colors and region preferences and whatnot. But that's not what we're here for. Essentially, what I wanted to highlight here is that this is an intuitive designer. It looks a whole lot like Word because that's what users are very accustomed to using. And it's not as overwhelming as you give them a form which basically they have to choose from n number of attributes and entities. The way that I would create a customer list here is basically look at customer. That's where my customers are. I can go in, drag and drop, say, hey, I want a tabular output of this, and ActiveReports Server picks up from the data model, says, well, okay, cool. You want a tabular output of the customers? Well, you're probably looking for full name and company. Yes, I am, but I want something more. And all this intelligence is all built into the data model, and the data model drives that. I also want my phone number, so I can actually make phone calls. Yay! I'll add phone number there, drag and drop it to the right, add that in. Wonderful. Now, I also want my lifetime value. I want to go in here and say, look at my invoices, look at my total, and I want my sum total. So I want to go in here. If I wanted to see what was the maximum order value or invoice value, I could do that. But I want the total value. And you see, I didn't have to remember syntaxes. I didn't have to say, well, how do you write sum? What do you write first? Do you write the fact that you want it for a customer level, or do you write the attribute name, and do I spell it right? There's a whole lot of things. As a business user, I don't care. I don't care to remember all that. So you just drag and drop as a business user. And this, you'll notice also, it gave me the dollar value because it's currency. The data model knows that this is currency stuff, so it's going to show you that. Now, what it did also from the UI perspective, it added 2 pages. So it put 1 page here and 1 page here. all side by side because the table is just going to be too wide. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it in, and you'll see that it actually brings it closer. Another thing that I don't know if you guys noticed, but I should mention here, is my entity tree just shrunk. It shrunk to the data that I'm working with, the data that is relevant to me. And that really helps me as a business user focus on what I want to see and what I can see in logical terms. Again, you want to be able to show something which is relevant rather than the business user just creating ad hoc reports which don't make any sense, right, and kill your database. You don't want that happening. Okay, now I want to go ahead and maybe group this by country. So I want to go back to my customer and I say country, I want to group on you. So I'm going to add that country up there, and it adds that country header. That's the country name, right? And it adds that as a header on my country. I'm going to go ahead and add filters as well. I'm going to say I want to filter based on all the sales that happened in 2011. So I'm going to go to invoices, pick up my date, and only the year. I only want the year part, right? And I'm going to prompt the user. Now what it's doing here, it's actually bringing up data from the database, the valid data. So again, something that I don't need to worry about as a business user whether I put in valid data or not. And it's only looking at the year part because I only want the year. So internally, it's already started filtering out and truncating data that you want to see only. So I'm going to choose default as 2011, but prompt the user as well. It makes it nice. I'm going to add also a filter for my customers, right? And I'm just going to choose the support rep. I'm going to use full name here, right? And I'm just going to use Margaret Park. I'll be Margaret today, right? I'll go ahead and prompt this as well. And from the database, pick up Margaret Park here. I'll be Margaret. I don't sound like a Margaret, but I'll be Margaret here today. Right, so we have filters done. We can do a whole lot of magic with the filtering, nesting, adding groups, adding ors or any, but we'll keep it simple for the demo today. I can go ahead and collapse this. Remember, you saw the collapsed months and dates, months and years in the previous report. I can collapse this. We'll keep it expanded. We'll have a nice long report. I can go ahead and change my look and feel for the table, right? I can make it more plain, more white, or I can make it the blue that it was. I'll keep it like this. I like it like this, right? We're ready. Hey, we're done. We're done. So let's go ahead and preview this. So now we have default values. At this time, until this time, the designer has not even created a query. At this time, when you hit preview, that's when the query gets generated. That's when the designer says, okay, now I need to build a query. What do I need to build? Based on exactly the attributes that the business user has chosen and the aggregates and everything, it will build a query dynamically and send it off to the database to get the data. It'll process the data and show me the report in the output that I want. And here it is. So I have a one-page report. I can go in and change the parameters, right? Or I can go in and go back and say, well, no, I didn't like it this way. I want to probably do something else. But we won't. We'll leave it as it is, and we'll go ahead and save this report. And we'll move on, right, to doing more interesting stuff like scheduling. That's what we wanted to do, right? We wanted to send this off to our sales manager, right? We're going to change this customer list for salesperson. And I'm kind of making it generic. I could just say Margaret's customer list, but I wanted to make it generic so that I can share this off as well. So press OK. It's ready to go. Close this. Right? We're back here. No category. Obviously, I haven't given it a category yet, so it's their customer list for salesperson. I'll give it a category. It's going to be in sales, and I want it in my favorites as well. Right? As soon as I put it on my favorites, obviously, it goes into my favorites. Yay. Now let me go in and schedule a task. Let's say I want to send this out. I'll call this as a daily report. No, doesn't make sense. Weekly report. Right? We'll do weekly. Right? And we're going to choose a schedule weekly. We're going to send this out as PDF. I could send it out as Excel or an image file. No, not worth it. Or a Word document. Excel would probably make sense, but we'll do PDF. We'll send it out as an email. I could also put it on a file share. Put my email address here. Right? I can go ahead and customize my subject and body of the email as well and choose if I want to send this out as an attachment or as a link. We'll choose an attachment. If I wanted to change the parameter, for example, I'm choosing Margaret Park here, I could say, well, this is not Margaret Park's, this is Steve Johnson's report. Right? He could choose Steve Johnson and then choose schedule it that way. But we'll accept what it is and we'll save. Now what this has done is it's set up a task to run weekly. Now what does weekly mean? What day of the week? What time of the week? That's all under the admin control. Right? So the admin can decide when the server is going to be free enough to run the weekly tasks or the daily tasks, and they can manage the whole scheduling process. At the end of the day, the users will get an email, right? And that's what they worry about. So we're done. So what we've done right now, we'll go ahead back to our presentation here. We logged in as an account manager. We created a report. We added customer value with the total sales, and we went out and sent it to our sales manager, me, to show what I'm doing with my accounts and how good I'm doing with my accounts, right? How good my sales are. So we have a few questions here, and I'm just going to spend 1 second here just to browse through, and we will touch on all of these questions towards the end. Right? So Anne and Sandra, thank you. We will be touching on these questions towards the end. Okay, let's move on. Right, so the data model. I've been saying a lot about the data model and the fact that it is all the intelligence and that makes the designer all intuitive and everything. And it is. So it is a one-time configuration that you would do, whether it's the IT admin or the DBA, somebody who has access to the database and understands what the business users, how the business users would want to use the data. And for example, what Anne asked was, what about more complicated expressions to calculate values when the min, max, sum, and average are not sufficient? Well, that's where you would go in and create those complicated expressions and make them available as attributes in the data model. So the admin would go ahead and do that and make it available. We don't expect business users to have the knowledge of SQL to create those complex expressions and have the designer really know, okay, well, this is what you mean. So we've kind of made that a task for the admins, and that's where it should belong. At the end of the day, the model is what provides you data governance. So the data, the corporate data, is still in the hands of the DBA or the admins, and you're not freely just opening up your data, so which can lead to a lot of security stuff. You're basically controlling. You have that level of control with the data model, along with the advantages of offering the intuitiveness and intelligence that the business users are demanding these days. So let's go ahead and look at this. Let's go ahead and log into the admin portal. Let me go ahead and clean out a few of these windows here. There we go. And here we are, the admin dashboard. So I'm already logged in as the admin, obviously. And I see my models, I see shared schedules, I see my reports, right? And I can also look at licensing and agents. We talked about agents in my last session about scalability and all. If you do have questions about it, I'll be open to talk about them today and answer questions about agents and scalability. But that's not the purpose for this session. Security provider, we're going to have a future session about security provider and all that extensible security, so we'll talk about that then. The things that we're talking about today are basically models. Now, Ricardo, this is where your question about data sources come in. When we generate a model, it basically asks us where the data is going to be coming from, right? And the data sources are SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, and Postgres, right? Basically relational databases. And we can add more providers. It's just that these are the ones, the mainstream ones that customers have asked us for. So if there's others that you feel that you want, put them in the questions and I will have a look at them. So Alfred, why do you not have a model? Because you haven't activated the designer, the ad hoc designer add-on. The models come with the ad hoc designer and not only with the server core. So get in touch with sales and support guys, and we'll be able to give you a key to activate that. Okay, so coming back to this, we're building a model here. We're going to go ahead and build a model from Northwind. Oops, if I can spell right, Northwind. Oops, sorry guys. Okay, my server is going to be my machine, right? And my database is Northwind. There we go. I spelled it right this time. Login as server admin. Password. It's very secret. Test the connection. Test connection successful. So we're connected to the database. We have permissions. Yay. And the next page, what it does is basically gives me all the tables and views that I can select from. Now, if there were stored procedures, that's the next step. If you have SQL, you can also use stored procedures as your as the source for your entities. So we're going to go ahead and select some of these, not all of them. We're going to select some of them because, well, rather than use all of them, it's easier to do some, and we'll look at order subtotals as well, right? So we've selected some. Again, what we're doing here is just sharing certain amount of data, not all the data, not the back-end data that we don't want. We want to govern and we want to keep. Right. So we'll do next. And at this time, what ActiveReports Server, what the model generator is doing is, it's querying the database and saying, hey, what do these tables mean? What are the attributes in these tables? What are the expressions? And it's, oh, okay, that makes sense. I already had a data source of Northwind. I should have named it differently. Okay, I'll go ahead and do that again. Generate, I'll run through this quickly. If I had misspelled it correctly, that would have been good, right? So ARVM, Bupesh. Oops, that won't work. And SA, Grape City, test, wonderful. Next. Quickly choose what I want to see, what I want to show. I want to make available to my users. Hit next. And like I was saying, now at this time what the server is doing, what the model generator is doing, it's querying the database, figuring out what the attributes are, trying to translate them into English, regular business language English. Right? No, I don't want to save my password. And generating the basic data model. Now this, I say basic data model because there's a lot of assumptions that the generator makes, which may not be accurate based on your business. So in healthcare, you may have some stuff which is protected. You don't want to show it, but it's there as an attribute. So you would go ahead and edit, and we'll do that as well. Right, we're going to go ahead and edit this model. Now what we see here, automatically what it's done is actually gone ahead and said, well, employee territory is essentially a bridge table. And this is kind of database speak, so if you don't know databases, don't worry, your DBA will know this. So it's a bridge table, so it hides it. You don't show the business user bridge tables. It adds to confusion. Category, in this case, is a lookup table. It didn't identify it automatically because there were more than one fields here. So let's go ahead and make that a lookup table. We'll go into products where category is related, add an attribute and say from a related entity, pick up my category, use my category name, and say next and finish. And this is where I'm adding intelligence. I'm adding ease of use to the data model here. And I'm going to go ahead and hide my category so it doesn't show it up and add to the confusion. Go ahead and hide the entity itself as well. So again, making it simpler for the business user to see and work with. And I'm ready to go. So now I have category name, the same way, remember, that we did the genre on the track. This is what your DBA or admin would do. Just a few clicks and we're ready to go. Let's also add that category, though, in the default attributes. So let's go ahead here and say, when I'm looking at product, I also want to see the category name, right, as the default thing. And I'll drag that to the very top. I'll say get rid of unit price. I don't care about unit price. Units in stock. So when I'm looking at product, I want to actually see what my inventory is, right? Those are the common things. So close that. Save my model, publish it, right, and we're ready to go. Now, this model is available to my business users when they hit new report. There we go. There's my Northwind test. I create a report. It opens up my designer with the data model on my left-hand side with the entity tree. Just waiting for refreshing on your screen here. Okay, here we go. So we see the customers, we see the employees are linked directly to territories. There's no employee territories in the middle. We see products, don't have categories, but you have a category name. If I go ahead and drag and drop my product here, I can go ahead and say drag and drop table. Design. Again, I can work with this data. I can say product, sort on, category name, done. Ready to go, save it, and we're done. If I wanted to make more changes, I can go ahead and make changes. It will not impact my report, right? The models are also versions are stored, so the report knows which version it's been working with. And it will upgrade automatically based on the latest version when you open it and when the new model is available. Right, so that was about our models and data structures. Let's go back to our presentation here. So what we looked at was how they would be configured with by the admin and DBA and how it helps with data governance. And we kind of looked at the intelligence and intuitiveness and how it helps, but there's a whole lot more that you can do. You can do security filters, you can do the default currency setups, default formats for attributes, you can do expression-based attributes. There's a whole lot that you can do. essentially what you are targeting to when you're making a data model is making it business friendly, making it approachable by the business user, making it easier for him to get to the data. You don't have to focus on reports, you just have to focus on the data as an admin, and that's easier than formatting it and making it nice, and we let the business users worry about that. So the takeaways before we get into the questions and answers, the takeaways here, and I do have quite a few questions, so that's good. So the takeaways here, we just looked at a web-based self-service reporting platform for your business users, and we've designed it specifically for the business users. With people who have used ActiveReports in the past, they know the features and the richness of features in ActiveReports, but we've kind of filtered that into what a business user would need and how a business user would typically work. So with the intuitive report designer and the scalability, it's easy for them to use. The key thing is it is installable, it's enterprise ready, so you just install it as an IT admin, make the model, and you're ready to go. It has per server licensing, and you do not need to pay on a per user basis. So if there are more questions about licensing, I can answer them, but we can also go to sales and talk to them about licensing. Just to wrap up, another TDWI survey for what makes this self-service BI attractive for business users. And this is, remember, one of the questions that we asked, and this really addresses that as well. Ease of access to the data and the faster time to value. Those were the two things that we all said we would be looking for as well. So that really reiterates that. A few housekeeping next steps before we get on to the questions. We do have a 5-question post-session survey. If you would kindly fill that up, it helps us make sure that these sessions are relevant, they're informative, that you like them. If there's anything that you want us to be covering in future sessions, you have questions, go ahead and put them in there. To start off with trials, you can start the trial with ActiveReports if you don't have ActiveReports already, or the ActiveReports server, and the links are there. If you, or you can participate on the forums and ask questions there, or send mails to our sales team. They'll like to answer any questions and get you started with. We will be recording, like I mentioned, so this webcast will be up there on our webinar page, and just generally stay in touch. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask on Twitter as well if you want. Forums are a better forum for that, but Twitter is good as well. Right, questions and answers. Okay, so I'm going to shift to my other machine here and look at questions. Okay, so let's see now. Let's go to the very top. There's a lot of questions people have asked, so I'm going to be needing to scroll. Let's go to the very top. Let me just make this bigger. Okay. So we did the data sources for Ricardo. We did the more complicated expressions for Anne. And Anne, you also asked about the matrix. Currently, the designer doesn't support matrix. Matrix reporting and cross-tab reporting is a bit more complex, and the average business user is not really there yet. So that is for more advanced users, and you can use the WinForm-based report designer that comes with ActiveReports Professional for that, and redistribute that. So if you do want to get into matrix reporting, let us know, and we can show you how to do that with the server. Now, it's not only for listing data. You also saw charts there. We didn't touch upon charts, but there's other recordings and videos out there which take you through the ActiveReports web-based report designer and how to build charts and filter them. They're pretty straightforward and easy to use as well. So Sandra, you asked about drilling down to the details from the group, and yes, that's possible. We saw a report which was already pre-built, which showed the summary, and we drilled down into the monthly sales, and then from the monthly we expanded the month as well. And we can see that in the recording. I'll just focus today, right now, on trying to answer as many of the questions as possible in the next 5 minutes or so. Can you encapsulate columns based on the roles? Mala, what does that mean exactly? So if you could share a bit more information about what you want to do with encapsulating columns based on roles, I'll be happy to answer that. So if you can just add on more information there. If there's multiple account managers managing different countries, how would data security be enforced in the data model? So in the data model, Shobha, there was an option for security filters. And security filters are able to identify the user who's logged in and then filter the data. So what they do is the data model is responsible for adding that where clause into the query that it sends to the database, and it's all transparent to the user. So if the user doesn't add the salesperson ID in the filter, it's still going to be filtered because the model knows that it needs to filter that based on the user who's logged in. Right, Ricardo, you mentioned OData. Right now we don't have OData support as a data source for data model. I will take a note of this and we'll look at this for future versions. I answered the one for Alfred here. Naga, you've asked for big data sources. Which ones specifically? That would be nice to have. Again, like OData, I will have a look at these and we'll plan them in for future into the roadmap if sufficient people are asking for it. Big data is kind of a go or no go sometimes, so we'll see what our customer base says about that. Okay, so does it require, Anne mentioned, does it require a separate license to activate data modeling? Okay, so when you buy ActiveReports Server, there's two licenses that you need to get. You need to get the Server Core license as well as the ActiveReports Server Report Designer add-on license. The Report Designer add-on license is the one that gives you the web-based Report Designer as well as the data modeling. We can go into a bit more detail about this if you want to ask further questions, and go ahead and we can we can take it offline or we can talk a bit more detail about this. So Ricardo, you're asking about building relations that are not part of the DB diagram. Yes, you can do that. You saw me creating attributes. Similarly, you can create entities based on SQL expressions or store procedures or existing views or new views that you've added into the database, and also relations. So you can add a store procedure and relate the output of that store procedure with a table if you want. It may have some impacts on the amount of data that gets retrieved from the database, so I would kind of be careful when I do that, but it is doable. The query will work and the model will generate the correct query there. Can my reports that are generated be hosted from within our application? Yes, so Paul, you can host those reports that you've generated. Essentially, they're just URL links. You can have your application embed the viewer or embed the whole report portal, or just have links to specific reports that you want to publish. So you have the full gamut of possibilities available to you based with the API, with the web services and the REST API, whichever one that you want to use. Kenny, you're asking about, can we write our own query with a where condition? Yes, you can, and that's where I was mentioning about adding entities. You can go ahead and create an entity based on a SQL query, which will have the where condition. Essentially, that entity is what it will use in the from clause when the ActiveReports server is generating the dynamic query for the user. Right? Let me scroll down here. Scroll. Let me go all the way down to, so that I have a few more questions without scrolling. Okay. So can the admin set up tables that users can drag and drop to add to their report, i.e. that already have certain columns added, maybe grouping and sorting, so that users can create a custom report that's basically just choosing which already made items they want to include? So to some extent you can. So if what we saw in the demo was the category name, and that wasn't necessarily the best option to show you grouping and sorting, but there are defaults that you can set, and you can set aggregates and stuff, which basically just, if they drag and drop the entity, they will see a tabular output already made for them. Right, Jason, so that's the answer to that question. Jason, if there is further information that you need about that, go ahead and enter a follow-up. Okay, so Paul here, does the report engine have the capability for allowing feedback to the application? For example, for instance, can the user click or double click on a cell in the report and cause an event to be fired back in my application? So what you could do is you could set those events, or you could have those be URLs, and click on those. Click on that cell means the URL output. But it's actually more doable if you design your reports with the more feature-rich ActiveReports designer and host the reports on the server. You can do exactly that. You can open your screens based on clicks on cells, or clicks on certain areas, or buttons on your report. Now, from a business user perspective and self-service reporting perspective, you don't expect users to go ahead and create reports that are that interactive. If that's something specific for your end users, that your users do really look for that poll, go ahead and let me know. I'd be interested in understanding more about this use case. Kenny, you're asking about how is the licensing work, based on user or based on server? It is a server-based license. So essentially, for all your production servers, if you have more than one, our customers typically use one or two if they have a geographically separately located data center. But usually one is enough, and you should be able to use that just one and be ready to go. Right? How about drill down reports? So Rajesh, we saw that at the very beginning. If you still want more information about that, and I also touched a bit upon that with an earlier question. Again, if you want more information, feel free to ask another follow-up. Can you show that security? So Brian, I will be talking a bit more on security in a different session. If you do want more specific questions on that security, send us an email, and we can set up a separate session and take you through security in more detail. Okay, so Rajesh, drill down. We just talked about hyperlinks to another report. Again, drill down stuff. If you want more covered, Rajesh, go ahead and send me a follow-up here. Okay, so I have just 1 minute left. Let me see if I can get as many questions here as possible. Okay. When I bought the server. Okay. So Alfred, there seems to be a problem with your licensing. So go ahead and send an email to sales about the licensing, and we'll work that out. If you have bought it, so then you should have it, right? So Jason, can the admin set up different color themes for the tables for the end users to select? Yes. The themes and styling are essentially XML-based files that you can go ahead and modify and upload to the server to make them available to your users. Okay, so Paul is asking, can a report be created that becomes a generate and print report so that it immediately goes to a printer without user confirmation? So you can do that as a custom process. Call the API and run the report, take the output, stream the output, and send it directly to the printer. So you can do all that with the API and extend the server. Now the report portal itself doesn't have that use case implemented, but it's something that you would be able to code on top of the server and extend that functionality. Okay, so we're at the top of the hour. Thank you all for attending today. And like I said, we will be recording this, so we will be sharing the recording out to you guys. If there are more follow-up questions or there's questions that I've missed here, I will try and get to them on an individual basis. If I don't get to them, please send out a reminder to the sales email address as well. Thank you guys for attending, and depending on, again, which side of the world you're in, good evening, good night, and have a nice day.